So if you are somebody who's struggling to get better at golf, then I promise you this is exactly what you're doing. Now I see this all the time. People reach out for help that come through that door or reach out for help online, and fundamentally they're always struggling with the same thing, and it is the backswing. And in particular, it's the backswing sequence. Now, the hidden move that is the big difference between a very good golfer and a very inconsistent golfer is understanding the hips. But importantly, in the backswing position, this is where I think you'll probably really relate to this sort of video. So what should happen in the backswing is we should be able to execute a backswing position where we move the club to the side of our body, keeping the club on plane. And we should also get good hip depth. So if I drew a line in the back of my hips, as I swing up to the top, my right hip should move further behind that line. Now, there's a huge misconception here, because what starts happening with loads of golfers, and I bet this could be you as well, is you start thinking, okay, I've got to turn my hips. And what you start doing is you start turning straight away. Okay, like so. Now, there's a big problem, because when you start moving everything back at the same rate of rotation, and I swing this way, can you see the way that I'm going to end up standing up? So you can see my shoulders end up very sort of parallel to the ground, so very horizontal. And also, if we drew a line in the back of my hips here, you see the way I've got an inability to retain hip depth. Now, the other dilemma you've got here is when you rotate like this, you're going to be dragging the club way behind you. And all of a sudden, what I see all the time is golfers start fixating on wrist positions, because they'll see all sorts of training aids about this position, or, you know, keeping the club in this position, or flat wrists. What happens is you end up having a sequence where you're sort of moving everything back together, and then you're trying to manipulate your wrists into a certain position like so, and the whole thing just loses a tremendous amount of athleticism. So the important thing that you need to understand is, even though a professional golfer might look effortless, they understand how to function and how to move the body. And the big difference in the backswing is you need to associate it as more of a stretch, or if you like, more of a resistance. Now, the way I'd want you to think about this, and I personally preach this all the time to my students, it always makes a massive difference. In the backswing position, we need to understand two things out of this video. The first one is sequence. The second one is the right leg functionality. So as I get set up to this golf ball, what you have to stop doing is actively turning your lower body in the first move. Because all this is doing is this is making you drag the club underneath, and it's making you stand up. What I need you to do is I need you to start concentrating on keeping your head still and moving the club more to the side of your body like so. So it's more hands, arms, shoulders, chest. And can you see the way that produces more of a tilt, as opposed to if I move my lower body? So that's the first thing you have to do, okay? Now, second thing we need to do is from the parallel position, say halfway back, now we want to start allowing the lower body, the chest and everything to turn. That's absolutely fine. But as we're turning, we want to keep that trail leg flexed. So let me show you what I mean. So I take it back here, and then as I turn, see my right leg is still flexed. So I'm not saying it hasn't straightened a degree. So if I show you again from here, take it back and then up. See, it still has an element of flex. It's still pushing in towards the floor. Okay, but equally it's straightened from its original position as I'm continuing to turn. Now this is vital. Okay, this is really, really important to understand, because if I can get to the top of my backswing and keep an element of weight on my trail leg, then obviously I can then use this, that ground reaction, to, as a response, to start turning off. And if we sort of take it back and then I actively think, oh, straighten my leg, you've got nothing to use. Absolutely nothing to use. And you only have to think of any other activity, you know, whether it be tennis, or whether it would be skimming a stone, or whether it would be throwing a ball. You would still use that trail leg as a platform to feel like you're turning into, to then utilize that to turn off. So the thing you need to understand, if you are actively turning your lower body too much in the backswing position, this is going to mean that you can't retain things like hip depth, and it's going to make you stand up. So start understanding that. The second thing is then to understand, yes, I want you to turn your lower body in the second part of the golf swing, but I want you to keep this leg flexed. Keeping that leg flexed and not actively straightening that leg means that you can keep interaction with the ground. It means you can utilize your vertical ground forces and pushing down, which makes the downswing way easier. Students I get the opportunity to work with, we improve the backswing positions. The downswing starts to improve much more on its own. Makes a massive difference. I'll see you soon.